Hi, and welcome to The Green Team, the weird little patron spinoff of the Legendarium Podcast. We get together to talk about the books and topics Craig and the crew haven't gotten around to yet. I'm Little Red Book, your humble keeper of the calendar. Today I have with me our Twitter queen, BefuddledPanda.
Hello.
And I have the leader of the mob, Megan.
Hey, everybody.
And I have the M of the Secret Society, Stephanie.
Hello.
I'm so excited to welcome two real live Legendarium panelists to our humble little offshoot. Today, we're going to do a combination of interviewing the Legendarium ladies and some circle of deviation questions from the Green Team discussion channel. Panda, I believe you have our first question.
So we'll dive in, and this is super casual. We're amateurs. You're the professionals. You've been doing this way longer than we have. But we're curious, how did you end up recording with the Legendarium? And Chesky from Discord also asks, how much convincing did it take to get you to do it?
Stephanie, you were on first, so you go ahead.
So the Legendarium started in the office space at my house with Ryan and Craig doing several episodes of Lord of the Rings. So I've been around the Legendarium pretty much since it began. The first episode I think I recorded with the Legendarium was for Mistborn, the original series. And that's pretty much because Ryan felt like I would listen to the episodes with him after they'd come out. And I was like, Ryan, you need a woman. You need a woman. You can't talk about something like Mistborn with this female lead without a female opinion coming out. So he asked me to do that one. So that's how I kind of got started on it. I don't think I officially joined the Legendarium crew until we did the Night Angel series by Brent Weeks. I think it was just the language and the stuff was a little harsher than they were giving Megan credit for. They're like, Megan doesn't want to read this, so will you read it? And I was like, sure. So it really wasn't that, I didn't feel like it was arm twisting or anything. I was listening to these podcasts since the beginning, so I was very familiar with it and how they ran things, but I've enjoyed it. It's been fun. It's really out of my comfort zone. It's not something that I have had a strong desire to get into until Ryan and Craig got it started, but that's where I kind of entered the picture, I guess.
Nice. Megan?
And now I'm looking at your notes. Thank you for writing these questions down ahead of time so that I can look at them. Then I didn't have to take notes ahead of time. Did I end up recording with Legendarium? I had known Ken and Todd. I have known them for about 11 years now, and I had met Ryan a couple of times. But Ryan cast me in a play in 2015, and that was when I met Craig, because Craig was producing the play. And Ken started telling me about this podcast that they were doing, and they recorded something at the local Comic-Con and all of that jazz. And so I started listening to it because they were reading the Belgariad, which I love. And it came up that I had read, oh my gosh, I'm blanking, The Way of Kings. And they were, that was the next thing that they had wanted to read. And so Ryan asked if I'd want to, ever since they started talking about it and I was listening to the podcast, I was like, I would love to get together with my friends and talk about books that I love. That'd be really fun. But I don't like to put myself forward because I don't ever want to make anybody feel like, oh, we have to invite Megan. She's so annoying. I was really flattered when Ryan asked if I wanted to join, which was nice because I'm really intimidated by Craig at the beginning. But I joined them for, Craig's just intense. He's the nicest guy, but he's kind of intense. And so I joined them for that and for Words of Radiance. And then they did their whole year of the Wheel of Time. This is probably a longer story if you're interested in. They did their whole year of the Wheel of Time. And after that, I don't know, it was probably around Oathbringer. I don't remember exactly. I remember the conversation I had with Craig where he was like, do you want to be a regular panelist? And I was like, sure. Because honestly, at that point, I'm with Stephanie where I'm like, it's kind of intimidating podcasting because it's the opposite of what I'm used to doing when I perform. Because I do a lot of community theater where I have a script and we rehearse it for a whole bunch of months and, work out all the kinks. And so when I get up on stage, I don't embarrass myself. you know. And I feel like every time we record an episode, I say at least 2 things where I'm like, well, I can't re-listen to that because I'm just going to hear that part that's so embarrassing.
Oh, it reminds
Can't
me
believe I
that
said that out loud. I'm so awkward. But yeah, Craig asked if I wanted to join. I was like, okay, yes. But it was so nice when he asked me, because he said something about, like, I kind of joked, I'm like, oh, it's because you need a girl to be part of the group, because they like the regular panelists at that time were the 5 guys, and Craig was like, I'm less interested in the fact that you're a woman than the fact that I think that you have valuable things to say, and I enjoy talking with you. And I was like, oh, thank you for saying that. That's really and that just has chilled me out a whole lot in the years since. The fact that
very
people
nice.
care what I say, and I may think I'm awkward, but apparently people like that, so it works out.
Yes, 100%.
Yes. So what I'm hearing is that neither one of you were arm twisted. You were both actually pretty excited to join.
Yeah.
That's just
that is
happened
accurate.
too. Yeah. It kind of just happened.
Yeah.
Kind
Yeah,
of
that's
like
really cool.
kind of
We
like
both went
how
through a trial
Little
period.
Red was like, "Hey Panda, do you want to join us for this one episode?" I was like, maybe." And now here we are.
That's pretty much what happened to me.
Yeah.
You want to do this? Sure. And years later, I'm still here.
Well, so Horizon Brave came up with this idea in a patron live stream. And the next thing I know, he's tagged me, Kipton, and Chesky, and Huron Fan. And he wasn't even on the first episode.
Just volunteered you all.
I'm not even sure how it happened. It happened to me again with another podcast I just did. Like, I don't know why I'm on this. It was for Green Team, but it was our trilogy episode. And all of a sudden I was on it and I'm like, how did this happen? I didn't. Anyway.
I mean, you probably always have the option to say no, but
I know. But
I always
Era,
get volunteered for the books Megan doesn't want to read. So
why aren't you reading Dune?
it's like, Megan doesn't
Oh
want
my
to do this
gosh.
series. So Stephanie will do it.
You guys can't see my face right now, but it is the ugh. I want to like Dune, you guys. And Craig was teasing me about how we keep reading things on Blue Team that he's like, at some point they'll read something you like. And I'm like, no, we've read a lot of things that I've liked. I just really hated Dune and A Princess of Mars. And apparently that's what people cling to.
That episode was that was so great.
Go check it out if
They
y'all
like
haven't.
it when I'm angry.
So what was your least favorite book to review and your favorite? This has kind of already been covered. And what's your favorite part about being on the podcast and your least favorite part?
Megan, what was your least favorite book?
Yeah, Megan.
I'm trying to pick one. What was the last Dune book that we read? Because it just kind of devolved. Was it God Emperor of Dune?
I think you quit before that.
No, I read 4, and I did actually read the 5th one. I just don't want to talk about it with Ken and Todd, because it's like the climax of that book is this huge sex scene, and I'm just like, I don't want to talk about that with these guys. I just don't.
Those two would be so
that's
awkward.
probably the least favorite I've read for the podcast. Like, literally, that's the only thing I remember about that book.
Review.
Yeah. And my favorite, there have been so many good ones, y'all. My favorite might be Neverending Story.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
I loved the episode with the ladies doing Neverending Story. I was surprised because it's not my favorite book I've ever read, but it's probably my favorite episode we've recorded.
Yeah. Well, that was one where I went in with, Stephanie and Kate, who are 2 of my best friends, and I had met Sarah like 3 times before. And it ended up just being a really cool discussion where the 4 of us really liked the book and had a lot to say. And Craig makes fun of our nervous giggling throughout. But for us, I think it was just kind of like, this is so nice. It's so lovely to be here. So that was really fun.
Yeah, when he said that on, I don't remember what channel, but he mentioned that. And I'm like, no, that's just the way girls are when they're talking together.
There's a lot of giggling.
By the way, that episode made me read that book because I hated the movie.
Oh, that's fair. I have definitely had those books where I hated I read the books. I'm like, I don't like the movie, but maybe the book is better. It's not always the case, but I hope that you liked that one.
Oh, I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
The second half is
the book
so
was
amazing.
so good.
Yeah, it's so
It was
good.
that was my first read through for Neverending Story, and I just loved that recording. It felt natural and it felt comfortable. Because there are some episodes that you sit down and you record and you're like, I
Yep.
don't know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
I don't really have anything productive to say to anyone about this. But that one, it was really natural, and it was just a lot of fun to sit down and
Yeah.
record that one.
Awesome.
My favorite thing about recording the podcast really is just hanging out with my friends. Like, I just really like all of these people, and whether I enjoyed the book or not, I know that what I say matters to them. And it's fun, and it's just part of the discussion. I know that Craig actually happens to like it when some of us don't like the books, because if it's just all love all the time, that's not really interesting to listen to. I think my least favorite part, and everybody just praises me for taking all these notes, but it's because I don't always remember what happens in the books, and so then I get stressed out. But like half the time my notes are just, this is what happened, and I'll be like, I want to talk about this, but I may not have anything specific I want to say about it, or like what I have to say is like 2 sentences long, and then I just feel like I'm wasting everyone's time. Like,
I take notes too.
yay! Oh, those are good.
And
I try to take notes and then I don't actually ever look at them while we record. And I was like, that was not helpful.
Well, I think taking notes, at least for me, it helps me process it when I'm reading, and then it helps me think through. And then when you're recording, sometimes it just becomes like, oh yeah, that is what I thought. So then you don't really need the notes. It's just part of the process. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
Um,
the same unless it's an actual quote that I want to use.
That's a good point. I just wish I organized a little bit better so it was easier to find what I wanted when I wanted it. I've been known to hum some really weird, like, waiting music that doesn't always get picked up by the microphone. Stephanie, do you have a favorite? Usually it's a Disney tune. Mostly it's get down to business. The Hans, because that song is
Mulan's always a
in my
good
head.
choice.
Yeah. Stephanie, do you have a least favorite book that you've reviewed?
Okay.
So I gave a lot of hate to the Expanse series. And it's not that I didn't like it, but I think that I'm not a sci-fi fan. I love fantasy. I've loved the fantasy stuff that we've read. I'm just not into the science part of the sci-fi. And I think so the Expanse was it was fun to record, and I enjoyed talking to Ken and Todd about it, but I was always kind of like, we have to do another one. Do I have to do another one?
Dear.
Oh, good. Everyone's asking for another one. Great. Okay, I guess we'll do another one. So those are probably some of my least favorites to read, but they were still fun episodes to record.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it made the conversation more interesting because everyone was always like, did Stephanie like it? Is this a good book? What does Stephanie have to say about it? Oh, there are extra characters, the points of view that she's never and it was just funny reading everyone's comments about what's Stephanie going to say about this book. I'm like, oh, I didn't really care for it. So
I'm sure it was fine.
It was fine. It was a fine book.
It was okay. I'd recommend if you like Star Trek, great, go read it.
Oh.
If you didn't, I'm just not I just don't like science fiction. So
that's fair.
I just always feel guilty when I don't like a book that somebody else loved. Like, I mean, Dune and A Princess of Mars are like Todd's thing. He loves them so much, and I'm just like, I think I've learned that if Todd recommends a book, I'm gonna hate it, and I'm sad about that.
I had the opposite reaction where if I recommend a book that I love and somebody hates it, I feel guilty. I'm like, I'm so sorry I inflicted that book on you.
That too.
I just had someone recommend a book. It's the first time I've ever read a Stephen King novel, and he recommended The Stand. And he's like, I hope you hate it. And I was like, why? I didn't understand that. I was like, you recommended this book that is your favorite Stephen King novel, and you want me to not like it. He's like, yeah, then I don't feel guilty. I was like, I don't understand this concept, because usually you recommend a book and you want someone to like it so you don't feel guilty. But he really hoped that I hated it. And I was like,
trying reverse psychology of some sort.
I don't know.
Oh man.
But he got his wish, because I was like, yes, that was probably not a Stephen King novel I should have started with.
It's ginormous.
It's really long. Really long.
Yeah.
One of my favorite narrators reads it though for audiobooks. So
I did listen to it. It just took me a long time to get through it. For someone who I plowed through the Wheel of Time in a month.
Oh wow.
I can do I did the entire Cosmere. I can get through audiobooks like crazy. And this one just took me so long because I was like, I just don't care. You're really interesting characters, but there's not enough going on. He called it boring, but a fun kind of boring. And I was like, now I know what this means. So anyone who hasn't read The Stand, it's a fun kind of boring book.
I disagree. It's actually a really great book with
That was
too much.
really not anything that you guys had asked me about.
No, that's fine.
This is great.
No,
Yeah,
my
I'm
only
curious.
problem with The Stand is like it has lots of like weird sex stuff, but that's also Stephen King. Like almost all his books have that issue, and you're like, what is happening right now? I do not need this in my book.
So that was my introduction to Stephen King.
Oh,
At least
dear.
novels. Oh, and what was the actual question that you had asked
What
me?
was your least favorite, your most favorite for reviewing, and what's your least favorite and most favorite part of recording?
Okay, so Neverending Story, I think we touched on because
Right.
I loved it. That's my favorite episode. That's the one I recommend everyone that hasn't listened to the Legendarium before. I was like, okay, this is a really good episode. It's good conversation, and I think it's a good starter into the Legendarium. Personally, I know that there are some haters out there that are like, "Oh, it's an all girls episode." I don't really like those, but I don't really care what they have to say, so I ignore them.
Wrong.
So
So
they're wrong.
that's all we have
Nothing
to
wrong
say.
with an all-girls episode.
That's
It's
right.
really probably one of the
It's valid.
Legendarium's best episodes, in my opinion, is that one. But so I have to admit, I really hate hosting. I really hate it. It's probably my least favorite thing about the podcast. And when I started, like when me and Megan first started talking about the ladies of the Legendarium and doing some offsets, because me and Megan never get to record together. It was then she asked me to host, and I was like, no, I hate hosting, and I still hate it, but I still do it. It's
Well,
just it's hard.
I gave you the option to not have to host Golden Compass, and you were like, "No, it's fine. I can do it." And I was like, "Okay, thank
Yes,
you
but
so
then I
much."
have to recap,
bringing
and I
you
can't recap either.
Yeah,
You don't have to.
One of those things, like we have Megan and we have Ken, and I mean, you've heard Ken's recaps. How can I even recap a book anywhere near what he does? Like, I'm just not that interesting. I'd be like, let me read the synopsis that Amazon has to say about. Like, I'd probably copy it off of someone. So I'm just not that. So hosting, I guess, is better than recapping, but I've never had to recap, so I've never chosen to recap, I guess. But hosting is hard.
yeah. It is. Well, and you like the host is the person that has to keep track of where the conversation is going and like steer it into a direction or like, have the questions ready to go. And every
Little
time
Red's just sitting here nodding. Yes, yes, it is. It is hard.
Speaking of Panda, what's in your hat?
Ooh. All right. Well, my hat is a mug. So
Well,
let's see.
we can't all be as cool as me.
We got some circle of deviation questions. Okay. So this comes from Eridandus. He asks, which fantasy character or characters would you like to have as a real life friend? How about Megan?
Ooh, I've been thinking about this. And there are a lot of characters, but I think I'm gonna have to default to Merry and Pippin from Lord of the Rings. Because
Good
my
choice.
favorite thing in the world is just like sitting around and eating and talking to people. And I feel like that's Merry and Pippin. And, just hang out and eat delicious food. And it just sounds really fun.
Like to
So
join
that's
that
why-
crowd, please.
You're invited.
Invite us on those picnics, Megan.
Okay, done and done.
Hey, Panda, what about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Okay, shoot. How about we go Stephanie first, and I'll take a think.
Okay, so Ryan is big into the Stormlight Archive, so we talk about that a lot in our house. And I think Navani is probably has become one of my all-time favorite book characters, especially in this last Stormlight book that came out. She's really grown, and she's just one that I would love to be friends with, especially now that I'm a little bit older, I guess, and can kind of relate more to her and where she's at in her life. Like, she's the kind of friend I want, just that she's smart, but she's still super down to earth. Yeah. Did that give you enough time? Do I need to keep going as to
No,
why
I
I
got
like
one.
Navani?
I haven't read the Stormlight Archives yet. I've read one Sanderson story. It's The Emperor's Soul. So I'm a Sanderson newbie. I've only read
How
The
have you managed
Hobbit.
listening to this? We've
So
done
there-
so many Sanderson books.
I've listened
tease
around a lot of things. I'll be honest. So I am strategically working my way through.
She hasn't read Dresden either.
Nope. Yep. I've
Okay.
listened to a lot of the one-off kind of episodes, and then there are ones where like I'm okay just like being spoiled, and I'll just listen to them. Yeah.
That was me during the year that they read The Wheel of Time, because I was like, I'm not prepared to take on that commitment at this point. So I'll just listen to the other things. It's fine. But then I read The Wheel of Time and I went back.
Yeah, there's still a lot to listen to, so I'm grateful. Okay, so my character, it's from Hilda, and I haven't read the books. I've seen the Netflix show. It's an animated little cartoon series, and the character though is this little creature, and it's a deer fox. So it looks like a little white fox, but it has little antlers, like little deer antlers on it. And his name is Twig. He is adorable and loyal and cute, and I would love to have Twig as my real life friend. Yes. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend Hilda on Netflix. Just Google the picture Twig. He's adorable.
All right. Writing it down.
So I would say I think I would want to be friends with Murphy from Dresden Files.
Yes.
And I would also like to bring into that world with me the disreputable dog from L'Oreal. I can't say the name. The Aporson series, the trilogy.
L'Oreal.
Thank you.
Which I haven't read the sequels. I've read Sabriel, but haven't read the sequels. And I haven't read Dresden either, so shame on me.
I have not read Dresden either.
You're in for a treat. I wish I could reread it for the first time.
I look forward to it. Yeah.
Maybe I'll make that my summer reading.
I'm not going to lie. Reading a book for the second time is actually my favorite time to read a book.
Oh.
So.
Okay, so something about Little Red Book here. What she reviews for the podcast, she reads the book twice. Like for all the books that she covers, she reads them twice. And I find that amazing.
I'm dedicated.
I've done that on occasion, but also it's like when we record weeks out, it's kind of hard. Like you read the entire, because I am not the type that can like, oh, I'm going to read these chapters and then we'll record and I can set the book aside. I have to finish the whole book. So I'll read the book and then we record one episode and they're like, okay, we're going to do the second half of this episode later. And I was like, crap, now I don't remember what happened because I've just read 3 other books since then. So there's a lot of times for the podcast that I'll get through the book 2, maybe 3 times, depending on how far out we record and how many episodes per book gets.
That happens to me too, where I'm kind of the same. Like I said, I write things down because I don't always remember them, but especially if I'm listening to an audiobook, I really have to listen to it twice because I miss a bunch. Because I'll be listening to an audiobook while I'm, working or cleaning my house, and I'm not necessarily paying as close attention as I would want to recording for the podcast. Like, I feel like I should know what I'm talking about if I'm recording the podcast, where I'm just listening to it casually.
That's not important.
Make things up. Did that happen? No?
It's funny. It's conversation. Parts are a surprise. That happened in this book.
Oh, Panda, do you have another question for our ladies?
Yeah, it's a good segue into our next question. And has reading for the podcast changed your approach to reading or your enjoyment of it? And do you read a book differently when you plan to review it? Sounds like sometimes yes, sometimes rereading the same book. Stephanie, how about you?
So I was never a big reader in the first place. And then Ryan's like, here, come read all these books. And so now I devour books. I devour audiobooks. My son actually questions if I actually can read. Because I don't.
Oh, no.
He did. It was so funny. So I have a 7-year-old and I had listened to, he always walks in while I'm working. So I always listen because I'm a seamstress. I sew all day. So I'm listening to audiobooks while I work. And he always comes in and I was like, Mommy's listening to a book. You have to get my attention or I can't hear you. And So I sat down to finish this book and grabbed it off of our bookshelf because we happen to have a hard copy, and I'm looking at it and he's like, "What are you doing, mommy?" And I was like, "Well, I'm reading the end of my book." And he's like, "I didn't know you could do that." And I was like, "Oh gosh, what am I teaching my 7-year-old that I can't read?" Forget the fact I read to him at night before he goes to bed, but mommy can't read actual books. I can only read picture books, I guess. But so anyway, that was a tangent. But so random. Now that I get into the podcast, I have listened to so many books that I never even imagined, I guess, and I'm still way behind. People list books and I was like, I don't know what that is because I'm still, I guess, fairly new to the fantasy world because I read a lot of Regency romance books on my own. And I loved it when I put that out there and all of a sudden I had all of these some of our patrons and stuff like, you need to read this series and this series, which kind of meld the two, which was a lot of fun reading Regency romance fantasy books, I guess. But getting into audiobooks, I can't take notes while I'm working. And so listening to books several times helps me a lot. I try after I sit down and finish a book to then kind of write down, this is what I thought about this, or this was an interesting part. So I have a few notes to take. I love when I have a whispered sync where I have the actual like Kindle version following along with the audiobook. So if something happens that I'm listening to, I can hurry and like bookmark. I have a lot of bookmarks on my Kindle versions that I can bookmark while I'm listening to it. And that helps me a lot while I'm listening to them. Because I know a lot of people have a hard time focusing and getting through audiobooks. So it's hard to, I don't know. I don't know. Did I answer a question in there somewhere?
You
did.
You did.
Good.
And it's the follow-up question is, has reading for the podcast changed your enjoyment of reading at all?
Yes, absolutely. I've really grown into what I feel like I've become more into myself as to what I actually enjoy reading. Or like when you're reading into high school and school, you're handed all of these books that you are required to read. And I think
Yep.
doing the podcast has helped me find more of what I enjoy reading and what I actually want to go out of my way to say, okay, I'm going to purchase this book because I just want to read it. I've reread a lot of long after Ryan had recorded some of these episodes. I've gone through and re-listened to some of the books that they've already reviewed. So I'm not going to review them, but like I loved the Lies of
Loch Lamora.
Yes, I read those after Ryan and them had recorded it, and I was like, this is awesome. I loved this series. And so there's some of that kind of stuff that I'm like, now this is me. This is what I enjoy. This is what I want to read, and going out of my way to find more stuff I just want to read, not because I'm required to read it.
Yep. Nice. How about you, Megan? Reading for the podcast change your approach to reading or your enjoyment of it?
When I'm not necessarily overall, if I'm reading a book that I know that I'm going to be reviewing for the podcast, I do read it differently than I normally would. I have always been a person who just devours books. Like I love to read. I like to use my eyeballs to read. Because I'm a very visual person. So audiobooks, I love audiobooks and I listen to a ton of them. But if I'm recording something for the podcast, I really want to read it with my eyes, which I know makes people crazy because then it takes me 3 times as long as anybody else to read it. Partly because I like if I stumble upon something that I'm like, ooh, I bet this is foreshadowing. I have to if I'm reading a Kindle book, I'll make a note or I'll highlight something. And so then at the end of it, I have like a billion notes that I then have to sift through. Or like if I'm reading a physical copy, I will literally stick Post-it notes in. Like I'll stick a Post-it and like make a note on it and be like, oh, this is interesting. Or, oh, this is a...
I love the books that she brings to the podcast. It's all of her Post-it notes.
I love my Post-it notes, but it takes me out of the story when I do that, which makes it a little bit less fun to read. But I also, when I read that way and then we talk about it for the podcast, I do get a lot more out of it and I tend to remember it a whole lot better, which is fun. Like I read, how many books did I read last year? Like 82. And I really couldn't tell you what most of the books were because I just devoured them so quickly, but they were so great at the time. And now I'm just like, I don't know. People ask me for recommendations and I'm like, I don't know. What was your favorite book you read last year? Let me go back and look at Goodreads. Plug for Goodreads.
That's actually why I read books twice. Is because the first time I just want to read the book. And then the second time I'm reading it to review.
That makes sense. That's usually why, while I'll end up reading, like we did Golden Compass a couple of months ago, and I had read it ahead of time. I was like, hey, I'd really like to talk about this book. How do you feel about it? And Stephanie was like, oh, I would like to talk about it with you. But then, like, since it had been a month or so, I can't even remember for a month, you guys. It had been a month or so since I'd read it, then I had to read it again. I'm like, oh, I picked up a whole lot more the second time. So thanks for wanting to read it.
Yeah, I definitely need notes to help me remember and keep things straight, especially with the series that I'm currently reviewing with a few other Green Team people. It's super dense, and we're doing it like a few chapters at a time per episode because it's just there's so much there. I'll have to show you my spreadsheet one time because otherwise I would not be able to keep things straight, and I would show up to the podcast and be like, so things happened and they were cool, and that's about it.
That one character that did that thing, you know who I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly. That one
Somebody else is
time.
trying to- Yeah.
Yep, totally. Things
I
were
still do
said.
that. Oh my gosh. You should listen to Era and Kit make fun of me when we do Uplift Saga, because I just mispronounce all the names. And I get all the characters confused.
The thing, if you like, you can tell who's listened to the audiobook and who's like
No,
read it.
I listened to the
person who read it
audiobook.
says everything wrong.
Listen to the audiobook.
I'm the corrector in our group. I'm like, oh, you're pronouncing that wrong, because let me tell you how the audiobook says it.
But I don't have that excuse. I'm just bad at mispronouncing things.
It's okay. We still love you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I like that about you. That's endearing. You should claim that as a trait and just make that your thing.
Oh. So, if you could review one book you haven't done, what would it be? And would you do it with us?
Ooh, with you two and Stephanie? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Now I'm asking weird questions and putting you in a corner. You don't have to answer any of that right now.
With
You
me.
don't realize what you just did. Megan
No.
is expecting us to review a book.
Here's what I'm going to say.
And she's very excited about it.
I'm very excited, and I would love to do a book with you. The maybe is Panda, because she's doing Malazan with the guy.
Oh, yeah.
And she may not be down, but we could probably find like Marilyn or someone like that to do it with us.
No,
Somebody on the green team.
Somebody on the green team.
I'm not even reading a book for the actual podcast right now. I'd be game to do the offshoot.
Not either right now.
Spin-off. That's the word I was looking for. It's like, what is this called?
You were asking the question. I had read through it before, and I assumed it was a book I had not read before. But then I'm like, but what if it's a book I've already read? So let's talk. I have been wanting to read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell for forever.
She's mentioned that to me so many times.
It is such a thick book. Like, that's probably one where you do like 3 episodes, and so I can't like Stephanie and I like to do one-offs.
That was actually the book I was hoping you would say.
Yay! Because I saw the Netflix series and I loved it, and one of my friends literally lent me the book November of 2019, and it's still on my bed. It's still on my counter. Like, I really want to read it. There's so many other things. There's so many things I want to read. I almost need an excuse to read it, which is usually the case of the things that I recommend. Stephanie, do you have one?
I do not. I have to admit, I don't really read a whole lot of things that people don't hand me to read. Because I'm constantly like, Ryan, what should I read next? Or I have an aunt who loves getting me books on CD from the library. And so she's constantly handing me new things. So I'm listening to that. And it's like, and then like the podcast is always like, here, let's read this. And it's like, okay, sure. So I haven't actually like looked into anything on my own. So I have nothing that I'm like, ooh, this would be fun. And I don't know enough of the world to be like, oh, I've heard so much about this series or this series that this would be really fun to review with the podcast. I just go where people send me. So I don't have anything that I want to review. I'm always game for something new because I'm finding I love it more and more the more I read fantasy stuff. So,
well, and heaven knows between the panelists on the podcast and the fans who keep suggesting things, like, you probably don't have to come up with your own list anytime soon. Like everybody has suggestions for you.
No, I always have nice reviews, and I haven't been disappointed in anything that I've been asked to read. So
That's
I like-
That's awesome.
I have, unfortunately.
Well,
Sometimes.
you also read a ton, a ton of things.
I'm very upset with Polonian Fire right now.
Oh, Drew from Inking Out Loud.
Yeah, that's Drew from Making Out Loud. For those of you who don't know, he talked me into reading 2 books I didn't like. Well, he's also given me some great recommendations too. So it's just
I'll take some better Stephen King recommendations if anyone wants to give me those, because The Stand was not my favorite recommendation that anyone's ever given me.
I'd say
Well,
the
and that's
Gunslinger,
interesting.
but
That's interesting because I've had some friends lately where, like, some of my girlfriends who I'll mention the podcast and they're just like, I wish that you would read the kind of things that I would like to listen to. Like, one of them, she brought up Michael Crichton, or when I mentioned that we were doing the Golden Compass, another one of my girlfriends was like, that book I read, like, she's not really a fan of fantasy, and reading the Golden Compass, she was like, if more fantasy was like this, then I would probably enjoy it more. And so
Okay.
like since then I've kind of been branching out and looking for like, and I don't know if it was that it was women centric or that the magic system or the fantasy element of it was a little bit different, because we have so many that are like retellings of King Arthur legends and that kind of thing. You know, it was fun for me reading Golden Compass and being like, okay, I can see specifically why that friend would love that. And now like I'm kind of looking for more things like that are just a little bit breaking out of my
Yeah. The
I can
I don't know
fantasy
if The Legendarium is a podcast I'd recommend to people who don't enjoy fantasy.
yeah.
Well, the thing about fantasy is the genre itself is so broad.
Yeah,
You have
it is.
things like paranormal romance that falls under the fantasy genre, and then you have things that, you know, Brandon Sanderson with a very meticulous magic system, and the spectrum is so broad. I think there is something there out there for everyone. You just need to know, like, you got to try a few things to figure
Mhm.
out which ones are for you. So lots of subgenres within fantasy. So I think those will be fun to explore in the future. Little Red, do you want to do some circle of deviation questions? Yeah, there's some silly
Yeah.
ones in there.
Let's see if we get the one I want. Yeah.
Oh
We
dear,
got it.
no, God.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh,
Is Harry
okay.
Potter a portal
Mm.
fantasy? Yes
You
or
guys-
no?
Befuddled Panda has her head in her hands.
I don't know if you lurk enough to know that this has been like an ongoing fight for about a month and a half.
Oh, I do, and I'm terrified of this question.
You could just say
And-
yes or no.
Feel free
I
to not answer the question.
Do we need to explain to the do our listeners know what portal fantasy is? Do we need to explain what that is?
Do our panelists know what portal fantasy
So
is?
portal
Oh, that's a good
fantasy, classically is the Chronicles of Narnia and books like that. Alice in Wonderland,
Ah, okay.
Alice Through
That
the
makes-
Looking Glass, things like that, where you go through a portal into another world.
Got it.
Now, Drew and Craig argue that it is in fact a portal fantasy, that Harry Potter is a portal fantasy, as do I. But there are many people who are very angry at that opinion.
Say
So-
angry, more like shake our heads.
So now we know where
That's me.
Panda stands on that particular She's on a no. You can you won't offend me, by the way. I don't care.
I'm going to say no, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
That is fair.
See, and I started off in the no camp, but I think Drew and Craig kind of convinced me that it is. I know that part of the argument for the no is that you don't necessarily have to go into the portal for the magic to work, blah 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 blah. Being in the regular world, magic can happen there.
Mhm.
But they do literally go through a wall and platform 9 3/4 that the muggles don't ever go through. So I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
By the way, I love Harry Potter.
Just so you know, I was talking about this with number 2 son, and he got very angry with me.
Oh,
We had a not like a fight, but we like had this huge discussion about it. He's like, "Mom,
It was a nerd fight.
It was
That's
a
what
nerd fight. It was a stupid nerd fight. I keep a list of those on the side of my bed when I need a gratitude list.
I could definitely see the argument.
Okay. Panda's like, moving on.
I'm gonna pick another one. Oh, hey, this is one that I came up with. So it's anyway. Okay, you're given the power to make every person on the planet to read a book of your choice. which book do you choose and why? There are no wrong answers.
Stephanie, do you have one?
I have one that came to mind, but then again, I don't know if I want to. I don't know. So anyway, the one that came to mind is Ready Player One. It is one of my all-time favorite books for really unknown reasons. I have no idea why, but I listen to it probably like every other, probably every like 3 or 4 months. I can listen to it 2 or 3 times, up to 4 times a year. I love it. And it's just one of those, one book, I can get it over with. I enjoy it. It's fun. And I always learn something new with it. But it's one of those things like I talk to normal people, normal with air quotes, and they're like, they know the movie. It's one of those things like movies come out, people know movies, but they don't know books. And I was like, but you need to read the book because the movie was horrendous.
Yeah.
So maybe just so I can have more conversations about it because it's one of my favorites and I know a lot about it and I like the 80s and that would be nice if I could actually converse with more people about it instead of the really badly made movie.
Well, and Will Wheaton does the narration, doesn't he? The audiobook
Yeah.
narrator.
And
He's
it's
so
fun.
good.
It's so good.
My favorite is the moment where he makes fun of Will Wheaton.
Yes. Brings that stuff up.
Oh, dear.
Little Red does not like the book. She's shaking her head.
I only got like 2 chapters in and I'm like, I'm done with this. This is obnoxious.
It is obnoxious, but it is really fun. Like I've read the book twice now, and I have seen the movie. I didn't mind the movie as much, but I do think it's really fun. There's the mystery part. There's the hunt part, right? Like the progression. Yeah, I really like that. And found family.
And it's not very deep, I guess. So it doesn't take a lot of like thought process into it. It's just one of those books that I can read mindlessly and it takes me into this world that I think is fun and interesting, which I think reading should do without having to deal with all of the
heavy topics.
Yeah, the heavier stuff. I mean, I guess some people could argue that there's some pretty heavy stuff going on in Ready Player One, but
Have you not read Ready Player 2 then?
No. I have not heard great things. So I was like, I'm not going to ruin my experience.
Same.
By reading it. I was already disappointed by the movie. I was so excited when it came out. I never go see movies in the theater. And that was one that I'm like, I'm going. So we went opening weekend to see that. And I was like, this is terrible. They took a really great book and made a really bad movie. And I was really disappointed. And so now I'm really iffy about any like offshoots of stuff from it because I love the book so much.
That's fair.
I understand. I support you.
What about Megan?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, it's fine that you guys liked it. It just was not my cup of tea. So.
Well, yeah, and like we just said, like, not all fantasy or science fiction is for all people, which is why this is such a hard question. Because mine, I would choose, and it's such an obscure book, but it's called The Ordinary Princess by MMK, Kaye. And it's literally, like, I read it when I was 10, and it has just been one of those books that I don't know if it helped shaped me, but I love it. Like, it's tiny. It's maybe 100 pages. It's about this princess who, she's the 13th princess. She's born and she's like the most beautiful one out of all of her sisters and blah, 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 blah. But then, because I love a good Sleeping Beauty offshoot. So it's kind of a riff on that. But at her christening, this fairy shows up and she's in a terrible mood and she curses the princess that she'll be ordinary. And so immediately, like, the baby starts crying. Like, she had been this perfect angel baby, and immediately she starts crying because that's what a normal baby would do. She just grows up like a normal person. Like, she's not super pretty. She looks, perfectly lovely. Her hair is regular color, And she grows up and just there are so many conversations in there about how you don't have to have, like, this extraordinary life and be the most amazing people, that there is value in who you are, regardless of what other people think, because she has so many expectations placed on her and she's so horrifying to everybody else because they're like, we're gonna paint a portrait of her and try to make her extra pretty so that princes want to marry her. And she's like, but why can't they just love me for who I am? Because that's not what I look like. And she, anyway, it's one that's short enough that it's like, if somebody was going to read it and they hate it, like, because I'm like, if I'm making everybody read this and I'm thinking, like, redneck guy who just wants to watch monster trucks. If I'm making him read this book, I don't want to make him read some super long book. But it's one that I've gifted to all of my youth.
It's very considerate of you.
Thank you. I want people to like me, so I think of those things. But
what's the author's name again?
Kaye. Just the initial M, like Megan, MK. I will show you the cover. That doesn't help the people listening to this episode.
This is a audio format, everyone. Megan is going to her bookshelf.
Oh, I have seen that cover before.
This seems familiar. I feel like I've read this, but like very long time ago.
Yeah.
It was published in 1980. Like it's very obscure, but it's one that I gift to, young girls all the time. I just want you to be you and not worry about what you think you should be. Just enjoy who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I thought of.
In a similar vein, I'm torn between two, like if I had to choose. There's Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine, which is in a similar vein as An Ordinary Princess. And then there's also The Phantom Toll Booth by Norton Jester. I think both, the reason why I pick them is because they really speak to the inner child. Like reading, part of why I enjoy it so much is because it does stimulate the imagination and really you're watching a movie in your head, and it just brings me back to when I was a kid and all the reading that I did and the adventures I got to enjoy from books. So yeah, I would choose those two. Little Red, what would you choose?
I don't know. I really don't. And this
Murderbot? Would you choose Murderbot?
I would not choose Murderbot. I would not choose. I would probably pick something like a book of Grimm's fairy tales or something along those lines. If we're staying in the fantasy genre, I would say Grimm's fairy tales. For obvious reasons, they've had a huge effect on our culture. And they also...
Sometimes it's nice to go back and... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say also, so I've done a little... I'm not like a big folklorist or whatever, but these stories, they exist. Most of them are almost universal. Like you'll find versions of them in many different cultures. And so I think there's something about those stories that speak to the human experience that is important.
They have stood the test of time.
Yeah.
So the next question is, do you have any advice to people who are curious about podcasting? And then Modern Water Writer from Discord asks, what's your advice for people who are newer to podcasting?
Stephanie, do you mind if I go first?
No, go. You.
I would say, first of all, make sure you have something to talk about. And if you do, be yourself when you're doing it. Don't try to, be super impressive or somehow not if you're not a deep thinker and you're just kind of and now we're going to talk about pop culture and blah, blah, blah. Just make it your point of view because that's what makes it unique and you'll have a lot more fun doing it. My other piece of advice would be if you're going to be doing it with somebody, find fun people to do it with, people you like to talk to, because that's way more fun to listen to than people who, I don't know, have long silences and don't have the producer to edit them out.
That's why we keep Panda around.
Wait, to do what?
To edit out the silences.
There haven't been many in this one.
No, there haven't.
That's probably one of my biggest, because I could never run a podcast on my own. I don't mind sitting at a microphone while someone else runs the tech, but I am not capable of running the tech. I have never learned that. So I think that's important if you're going to do a podcast, to make sure that you have the ability to record and to make it something that people can actually listen to, physically listen to, not just make sure that whatever voice you're using, or because that doesn't matter, but that the recording is decent enough that people aren't paying to sit and listen to it. The other thing that I think is something important is just be patient with yourself, trying to find the group of people that want to hear what you have to say, because they're out there. I'm shocked at how many people constantly are commenting going, oh, I loved this point of view of yours and I loved what you had to say about this. Because I'm sitting here thinking, why do people care what I have to say? And own what you have to say, because someone out there wants, if they're interested, they want to know what you have to say about whatever topic you want to talk on. There's going to be someone out there that's going to listen to pretty much any topic because there are podcasts out there for everything. So be patient in
Oh my
finding
goodness,
the right
yes.
the right group and the right group of people that want to listen to what you have to say. It might take some
Right.
time before you have that huge group of listeners, and then it's going to build because word of mouth is going to get out there, but it takes time.
And it's
That's
also
good advice.
okay if people don't like you or like what you have to say. Because for some reason, those people always feel the need to make themselves known. But there are always so many more people who like you and care about you and just don't say anything. They just like listen and they're like, my day is better because I listen.
Mhm.
Maybe not 1,000% better,
True.
but you know.
Yeah.
It's true. There are a lot of lurkers out there. I'm definitely a lurker on some of the other podcasts that I listen to, and now that you said, I'm like, yeah, I should at least let them know that at least one person out here is appreciative and enjoying the content that they're putting out there. So, yeah.
The nice thing about our Discord, though, I feel like, is it's a pretty positive place, and
Mhm.
nobody's really there to tear anybody down.
I haven't felt that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just add, even though I've only been at this for a year now. Oh, I'm at almost at my
Yeah.
1-year anniversary. Is don't be afraid to be wrong. Like, you're going to be wrong about things. You're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to have an incorrect opinion or misunderstand something that happened in the book you were reading if you're reviewing books. And it's okay. It's okay to be wrong sometimes. So Kip loves it when I'm wrong.
Sometimes it generates the best conversations because then you actually like talk about the differing views, like two people reading the same thing, coming away with different ideas and different
Right.
understanding of what
Mhm.
happened. Yeah. Cool. All right. So that was that question.
And now it's my turn. We've already done some of this, but any behind the scenes stories that you'd like to share with us?
I have to admit, I don't know if it's all that interesting when we're in studio. Like, I don't feel like anything weird has happened. It's usually Craig being super serious, trying to make sure sound check's done and everything. And the rest of us are just chatting. Like, we're just a group of friends getting together. So behind the scenes isn't any different than if we had all gone out to, say, like a restaurant and just started chatting about what we're doing with our lives. Like, we're talking about our kids and our families, and we're talking about what shows. We're all theater people. We're talking about what shows we're watching, like in or working on. So I don't know if I feel like we would be disappointed if people are like, "Ooh, I'd love to be a fly on the wall at the studio to see what happens," because it's not as interesting as I feel like some people might think it is.
I think that's what really draws us to the podcast, is that's what it feels like. Is it
As
feels like,
group of friends.
yeah, sitting around talking about their kids and their family and this really cool book they just read or whatever, you know?
I hope so. Like, because we are. It's exactly like I don't feel like we're any like professionals. We're not some lit professor out there trying to dissect these books. We're just a group of friends that got together and read the same book and now want to talk about it. And it's just happens that we have a great group of people that love listening to us.
I didn't think of anything, you guys. You all look like you're waiting for me to say something, and
See,
Hey,
we're
if
not
there's
that.
nothing.
It's just not that interesting, is it, Megan? Like, we don't have any like
I
massive.
used to like try to surreptitiously take photos behind the scenes, but they never worked out because it's when we were recording. Like, we record in the round. Like, we all. I don't know if you can tell that if you've watched any of the YouTube videos, but we all like we want to be able to see each other when we're recording.
Mhm.
Which is kind of fun. And like Stephanie, her spot where she sits, and Craig or Ken, whoever's doing tech, sits at, or Ryan, if we're doing Ladies Legendarium, sits like at the computer, and just end up chatting a lot. We have to navigate the heater, like the random heater sounds or the air conditioner, so we'll have to shut those off, and sometimes it gets real warm. And
The
then we
big
have heated
pauses while
conversations.
the planes fly over our houses that we have to wait and pause for the planes, and you just sit there and you hope you remember what you were saying so you can pick up where you left off.
Yeah.
I hope you weren't expecting anything like, oh yes, this is what happened when Ryan stood on a chair and decided to. I don't like. We have nothing like that I can think
There
of.
was one time when Ryan and Craig got really heated about a Star Wars movie, and I started
dear.
recording video just because I thought it was so funny how they were like facing each other and they were right, dead on looking, and I was just like, you guys are real intense right now. I'm glad I'm here. This is entertaining.
Do you? Let me ask a follow-up question. So now that Legendarium is doing the video recording as well as the audio recording, do you find it any different in terms of like how you're having your conversation? Are you more aware or less aware, or it doesn't matter?
I weirdly came in like I said, I came in for Way of Kings, and Craig was kind of playing around with the video, the YouTube stuff at that point where we were trying to do like live recordings. And so we were putting it on, maybe it was Facebook Live while we were, and so the first bunch of episodes I did were all on video, which I thought was real weird. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to put makeup on. Look different if I don't. The guys all look normal, but I'm just like, I look like a zombie. A really cute zombie, but still. So like it was kind of like a full circle for me when they started, and I've only been on one episode that they've recorded recently, but it wasn't that weird for me. Like I didn't feel that awkward.
I think that was the episode we did together. It was a Sanderson episode, Megan, that we had just done recently.
No, she was also on the
Princess of Mars.
the Princess.
Yeah.
Go two.
Oh,
I've done two.
Yeah. That was actually really funny to watch your face in that one because you were like. For those of you listening, I made a face.
Yeah.
Go watch the
Flashing
video
my
and you can
notes
see
at
the
everyone.
face.
I get really self-conscious at the beginning of the episodes. Like, where's the camera? What am I doing? Like, where are my hands? Because I tend to talk a lot with my hands. And so I get nervous about, like, am I going to hit my mic or anything? Like, what do I look like when I'm talking with my hands? But then once you get into the conversation, you kind of almost forget the camera's there. And then you just pray after you're all done that you didn't do anything super embarrassing, forgetting that the camera was there.
Well, and Craig, the first time we recorded, Craig was very much, don't look into the camera. We're not like presenting this to people. We're still recording this episode. We want it to be as natural as possible. Let's continue looking at each other. And there was a moment during Princess of Mars that he'd originally, for that episode, they had the two cameras where one was on the two guys on the couch and then I was sitting in a chair by myself. So I had my own camera. And it was literally in my line of sight for Ken and Todd. So it was looking like I was staring into the camera. I don't know if you noticed that when you were watching. But at one point, like Craig got up and moved the thing. And I was like, I am so distracted right now. I don't know what those guys are talking about. What's happening? Okay. Like it was so strange. But other than that, it hasn't been weird.
I got something in my hat. Let's find out what it is. Merlia says, which of you is the best at deception and most likely to win a game of Among Us? Or Secret Hitler or Mafia or Werewolf or any of those kinds of games? Or do you guys know what that is?
I feel like Megan, because she's so sweet that no one is ever going to believe that she has this dark inner side to her.
Oh,
Megan's like, ooh, I am right. You know I'm right, Megan.
yeah.
The boys are all too obvious, really. Like everyone would suspect Craig. Like Craig's just going to be the bad guy. Like everyone's going to be like, yes, it's Craig. Like, we all know that. But Megan is so sweet.
So often during those games, my goal is to skate under the radar. If I can, if I'm the second choice, whoever's the first choice goes out. So I'm like, So yeah, it might be me just because those kind of games stress me out a little bit. So I just kind of, I'm like, I'm just going to be cool. I'm going to hang out back here. And then people forget that I'm there. And then I win.
I'm the type that hides in the corner and really I'm participating, but not participating. If I'm playing at all, can I just hide here until the game's over and say I played?
Well, Todd would be all, oh, it's not me. I'm this and this. And he'd have some major backstory. And we'd all be like, so it's Todd. Okay.
He protests too much. Awesome.
Panda is very good at playing sweet and innocent too.
Oh,
I don't know what you're talking about.
You can tell it's her because it takes a really long time for somebody to die.
I'm getting better at it, okay? I'm working on it.
You haven't played in a while though, so maybe you are better now.
I've never actually played Among Us.
I'm actually very, very bad at Among Us. It's not even close.
Little Red likes to be killed early on, so she doesn't have to worry about running into walls, which is totally fair.
I am always the first to die. Always.
And I don't mind.
I'm always at the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, I'm always the first to die.
And what pressure? Yeah.
What? Yeah, and whenever whenever I'm not the first person to get killed, all the ghosts follow me around to watch me run into walls as soon as they're done with their tasks. Which I blame Kip for, because he started it off as a hobby for everyone.
I think a Legendarium Among Us gaming session might be in
That would be
order.
in the new room, the new big ship.
We'll proposition to Craig the idea. Okay, I've got another question here, and it's just 3 simple words: best pizza topping.
I don't like pizza.
And why
Which is
is it
totally fine.
pineapple?
If I order pizza, it's Hawaiian. I like Canadian bacon, but I'd rather eat it just alone.
Just
I'd
the
rather
bacon.
eat just ham than it on my pizza, personally. I don't like pizza.
That is okay.
For me, it's usually Canadian bacon and pineapple or sausage and mushroom. It kind of depends on the location, because
I heard mustard for some reason.
Too
When I
much
was trying to
sausage.
figure out why you wanted a sausage and mustard pizza, I'm like, that's weird. Mushroom. Got it.
Sorry.
You do you, Megan. Whatever you want on your pizza, you enjoy.
I live alone, so it bothers nobody else if I eat what I want to eat. Maybe I should announce that to the world. I live with 6 roommates. No.
And they're all big burly men.
Yeah.
Who'll pound you if you walk
I'm
in the door.
basically Snow White and the 6 tall men. That's weird. That's your soundbite for the introduction. There you go. You're welcome.
Oh, I usually do pepperoni, mushroom, bacon, and olive.
Ooh.
I don't think I
would
have a favorite. Yeah. I mean, I don't particularly like olives on pizza. I like olives on their own, but not on pizza. But I like onions on pizza.
I like that too. For sure. The kids still make me cook for them. No, they don't. I'd like doing it, actually.
I would starve if I wasn't married to Ryan. We've had this conversation several times. So I do not
is he
feed.
the cook?
Yes, I do not feed anyone in the house. I'm lucky I feed myself on occasion. So
A lot of
me and
cold
fast
cereal.
food are very good friends.
I never cooked until I had somebody to cook for. Like, I learned to cook after I got married, and then I started cooking for the boys even after the divorce. And I quite like cooking now, especially if I have like a group of people coming over or something like that, you know. But it wasn't something I did when I was growing up.
Cooking
Me
for
neither.
one person is difficult.
Yeah, it really is.
All right. Do you want to do another deviation one?
Yeah, sure. If you got to travel anywhere, where would it be?
And you can interpret that question however you would like.
I'm gonna ask Panda to answer that question first.
I'm gonna go with the cop-out answer. I would like to go to Narnia after the White Witch has been defeated.
But before
Ooh.
Prince Caspian?
All right.
Yeah, I mean during the reign of the 4 Pevensies, that would be fun. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things about The Horse and His Boy, is that you get this glimpse of what Narnia was like when they were on. I just love it.
Yeah.
But she's still I'm gonna be kind of boring and say I want to see real life, like, just I really want to spend a month and go and see all of the, like, England and Wales and Scotland and Ireland, and like explore as much of it as I want to, because so much of the fantasy that I love is grounded in like the British culture and the countryside and the stories from there. And I just have a crush on any man with a Scottish accent. So
Join the club.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
It's not a terrible reason to go.
It's not.
While I'm still single. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's the place I most want to go to. I'm the kind of person that is like, whatever trip I have planned next, that's what I'm the most excited to see. But right now I don't have any trips like that planned, and I'm just like, oh, if I could just pick one place, it'd probably be Scotland. If I could pick one place, I would pick 2 places, apparently.
I mean, you could say just that whole region, and then you can just explore the whole region. Yes.
Yeah. Just like walk around and talk to people and eat bangers and mash because I'm not a fish and chips
High
kind of girl.
tea.
Ooh.
Okay.
Bangers
Yes.
and mash doesn't sound good either, though.
I'm pretty sure
It's
it's
mashed
sausages and
potatoes and
potatoes.
sausage.
Yeah.
I don't like sausage. Like that
I'm not
still
for that.
doesn't.
What
I
about
remember
bubbles
being
and
in
sweet?
Germany and they're like, you have to eat the bratwurst. And I was like, okay, I tried it. I tried several different, and I was like, nope, it's still not good. Even in Germany, it's still not good.
I went to England and everybody around me got fish and chips, and I was like, chicken for me. Thanks,
Yep,
everybody.
that's what I
I'll eat
got.
the chips.
I got my chicken and chips when I went to London. I tried said fish, and I was like, I've tried it. I'm good. I don't need my
Good.
own. Thank you.
More adventurous than I am.
Sticky toffee pudding. I recommend that. Sticky toffee pudding for
I want to
dessert.
try treacle tart. Ooh, yeah, okay. I'm up for that. I would also like to try treacle tart.
Mm,
Because, it's Harry
yeah.
Potter's favorite dessert, so I need to try it.
I don't really like toffee, so I'll go with the treacle tart.
Okay. Clotted
I love
cream.
coffee.
Okay, at least have the clotted cream.
I will
'cause
try.
We don't
Yes.
have that in the
Never
US.
go. Oh, we don't.
Scones and clotted cream, all in.
Yes.
You can see why Pippin and Mary would be my friends of choice now, right?
Yes, yes, I can.
Let's just talk about food for a little while longer. Shepherd's pie, anyway. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I had this great recipe for shepherd's pie. It's not traditional. It's like a cheap American knockoff, but it's super easy to make, and I love it.
Is it the one that Rachel makes on Friends that has like
No.
whipped cream and bananas?
It's
'Cause
the
I would
one
not
that
say that.
it's the 30-minute meal one that Rachel Ray, remember that food show?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's her shepherd's pie.
Smart.
So-
All right.
I sent the recipe to Panda, in fact. I think that was our first DM.
I think so. Yes. I have still yet to make it, but it is I don't cook that much. Not seriously anyway. But yes, one day.
Yeah.
Exciting. Thank you for letting me divert so
Oh yes,
far
no
away.
worries. No worries.
We don't allow tangents here, Megan. I
Oh.
don't know what you're thinking.
No.
I quit the podcast.
I have so many places.
I know.
You just say them all really quickly and then it counts. Just one after the other.
So, for any like major Disney fans out there, if you've ever been on Soarin' around the world, like that's my dream right there. I think I've hit like 3 of the places on there, so like I have a few more on that list to hit, but that's kind of what I want to do. I want to go see the pyramids, and I want to see the Great Wall of China, and I want to see these great wonders of the world. I want to see the Taj Mahal, and
Mhm.
I guess that's like one place I really want to go back to. I went to Austria, and I just loved being in the small towns in Austria. That's something that's more on the simple side and not just showy and flashy. But Austria is a beautiful country. They're beautiful people, and I had a lot of fun when I was in Austria. So I'd love to go back there someday.
Yeah, the history, the architecture, especially in that region, is just so rich.
And I love the
could
Alps.
spend-
Their
yeah.
mountains are gorgeous. Like 'cause we were in these small villages within like these little ski villages and stuff when we were in Austria, and I just loved it. And it's beautiful and it's simple. At least where we were at, we weren't in any major cities in Austria, but
I would go to Scotland and England. So the British, the UK. The UK, that's where I'd go. I wouldn't go visit my castle because my sister bought me a square foot of a castle for my birthday last year. And I'm a lady.
oh,
Yay!
Actually, it was 2 years ago. And she bought each of my boys for their graduation presents, lordships.
I love that.
Funny.
That's a good gift.
Yeah, it was a fun gift for sure. But I'm going to pull rank on you because we've got this question to do.
Oh, okay.
So Red Army Ian asks, if all the hosts were Star Wars characters, who would everyone be? Or better yet, the Muppets. And the solution seconds this question. So pick Star Wars or Muppets. You guys could collaborate on this.
I'm going to intermix them both because I've been thinking about this a lot since I saw it. And I've actually talked to Ryan about it a little bit.
That's cheating.
I know. I'm sorry. That's what happens when the person I talk to the most is also on the podcast. But so we are talking, and I think someone on our little chat mentioned that Craig is Statler or Waldorf, which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
He is.
He could be both of them.
Craig is both of them at the same time. Ryan for me is absolutely Kermit. He's like the leader of the pack, and he's like that down to earth, very sweet. Like I can say really nice things about Ryan. I can say some mean things about Ryan, I guess, but Ryan's
Oh,
Kermit
don't
to me. He's my Muppet man. Like he is hilarious, and he loves the Muppets. And he's very. We had a conversation like I think he's like a mix between Gonzo and Kermit, where he kind of has that weird side, a little on the crazy that you're not quite sure what he's ever going to do, but he's also very down to earth like Kermit is for me. I'm going to kind of switch sides, switch parts of the question, because when I got thinking about the Star Wars characters, Ken for me is Han Solo. He's the guy that's going to shoot first and ask questions later, but he's also going to be the guy that has your back no matter what.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Ken, listen to this and know that I think you are Han Solo. And then
I think that'll make him very happy.
That's what Ryan's like. Ryan, Ken is Han Solo, and Ryan's like, I don't see it. And then I gave him my reasoning. He's like, that would make Ken happy. And I was like, because he is. Like, that's just Ken. If you've ever met Ken, if you ever get to know Ken really well, out of all of the panelists, Ken's the one that I've known the longest. So we've been really good friends for a really long time. I think we're going on almost like 15 years of friendship.
Oh wow.
Ken, he's that punch, like get to the punch in. He is Han Solo for me, but because he will always show up in the Millennium Falcon, and he will have your back when it's needed. But and then Todd, I got thinking about this, and Todd is Yoda. He's the guy that's going to say a lot of things, and you're going to sit there and you're going to have to think hard to understand him. But it's usually really smart. But he's kind of hard to understand sometimes. That's why I think Todd is Yoda.
I can see that.
He does. He says some really fun, like. So that's Todd.
I'm obnoxiously smart sometimes, where I'm just like, oh, you're swaying me to your side, and I don't want to go there, but I guess I see your point of view. Boom. Fine, A Princess of Mars wasn't terrible, except it was.
And then I have to make this little caveat with Megan, because Megan for me is like Queen Amidala and Padme without Anakin. Like, forget that she ever met Anakin, because I don't really ever see Megan falling for that kind of bad boy. Maybe some others, but not that kind of bad boy. But she's the type that, like, she's the senator that you want fighting for your people, because she's going to fight hard. And you know that she's going to sit with, like, it's going to be passionate and it's going to be caring, and she's going to love these people. So she's like the senator or the leader that I want in charge of my people, just without Anakin.
Thank you. I'm so flattered.
I can't say anything about Kyle. I don't know Kyle all that well, so I got nothing for Kyle.
Those
so
are
sorry,
very
Kyle.
good. Those were
Look
very
at me.
good.
I thought this through. I hope that people approve.
And I didn't give a ton of thought to it, but if I were going to cast you as one of the Muppets, I would cast you as Janice. Because like Janice, she's the one with like the sheet of long blonde hair that's always in the face. But like,
she's in the band, right?
Yeah, she's in the band. She is so cool. Like, she's just like the cool, chill person that you want to be there with, who's just a lot of fun. I love, like, she says things that are just kind of unexpected that I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm on board with that. Like, she's somebody I want to hang out with, and I just feel that way about you, Stephanie.
Oh,
sorry, that was not as deep.
They gave me 2 topics that are like obsessive to the man I married. These are things we talk about all the time. It's Muppets and Star Wars is really, I think about these things all the time. Like, because that's what conversations happen in my home. So they couldn't have picked 2 better areas to hand out characters to, at least for me, because it's just what my life revolves around.
It was Ian who came up with the question. Neither one of us did.
So thank you for throwing that question out to us.
Well done, Red Army Ian. Thank you.
Okay. So any last thoughts? Oh, what are you reading next?
I'm currently not reading anything for the podcast specifically. I'm in the middle of 3 different series. Wait, 3? I don't know. At least 2. Yeah, 3 series. None of which are for the podcast. But I'm currently reading The Shadow and Bone. I have the 3rd. I just finished the 2nd one in that series. which I'm really enjoying. One of my friends was like, it's going to be a Netflix series. And I was like, well, then I better read it before it comes out on Netflix because that's how I roll. But I'm also rereading the Belgariad, and I just started one. I want to say it's called Kiss of Fire. It's the Imdalin series by Rebecca Ethington. I don't know if you know her, but she's a friend of mine. And so I was like, oh, I'm just gonna read a book and see what I think. There are like 8 in this series. And I just started the first one, so I don't really know what it is yet, but I'm enjoying it.
I've been meaning to read Shadow and Bone before the show came out for a while, and I still haven't started it. And the show's out now.
Yeah, it's another. Apparently, the show really only references the first book in Shadow and Bone. So if you read the first one, like it won't spoil anything for subsequent. They have characters from a secondary series that takes place in the same universe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they're not doing what they do in those. It's like a prequel for them.
Okay, I can at least do one book.
Yeah, good because I started the series and I haven't read the books. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
they've been good to watch
because it's another one. Okay, I've heard really good things from friends who have read it who've also seen it. I canceled my Netflix when they raised the prices, and I haven't yet come back to okay, fine, I'll pay for it. It's fine. It's my potential protest. Nobody cares that I'm protesting this, but I'm still protesting Netflix for a minute. But it's one that one of my friends, the friend who told me to read Shadow and Bone, really likes the series. I mean, it's Ben Barnes as the villain. I'm up for it.
Part of why I want to read the books so I can watch the show. Yes, I admit that.
I'm not slated to read anything for the podcast right now. I don't even know what they're recording right now.
Jurassic Park.
It's like I'm so out of the loop since we did Golden Compass. I think is one of the last episodes that I physically had anything to do with. Other than I did Brandon Sanderson because we all did Brandon Sanderson, but
right.
I was thinking the question was more like, what are you reading next?
Just in general.
In general, good. Because I was like, I'm not reading anything for the podcast. I'm in the middle of a book right now.
For the podcast.
That makes me feel better because I just gave you my entire life story of the books I'm reading right now. I'm reading this and this and this and this and also a Regency romance that I didn't get to because it's not podcast specific. So anyway, continue.
But I'm reading a book called I think it's called The Paper Daughters of Chinatown, which takes place at the turn of the century with the human trafficking through China into San Francisco and rescuing these girls. It's a fiction based on the true story, which has been interesting. It's one of those things, like I said, my aunt kind of just gives me audiobooks that she thinks I'll enjoy. And sometimes I wonder what she thinks I'll enjoy because when she hands them to me, you know me? This is new or different. But I'm enjoying it. And I'm also in the middle. I've started re-listening to the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. So I'm in book 3 of that. So I've been re-listening to that intermixed just because it's something that I've already listened to. So I don't have to think very hard on it. But yeah, I don't have anything else coming up. If you have any recommendations, shoot me a message because I'm always open to. I feel like I'm going to get a lot of Stephen King recommendations now.
You might. You might be sorry.
Because I keep mentioning him and I'm new. I've read The Stand and Misery. So those are my 2 that I have read and don't recommend it because I saw the movie and have been scarred for life. So I will not be reading it. But other than that, I will take recommendations.
Have you read The Running Man?
No. I need to make that next on my list.
It's not written. I'm trying to remember. It's like Richard Buchanan is the name he's writing under. That you probably would find it now under Stephen King.
Yeah, I think you'll just find it under Stephen King now.
Running Man. Done. Because I read books almost in a day. And
that one you definitely will. It's really short.
And I had to plow through The Stand. And so I got up to, I think I listen to my books at a 2.5 speed right now, which borderlines on almost chipmunk sounds. So people are like, oh, how do you get through these books? It's because I listen to them very fast and I work 6 to 8 hours a day with my headphones on. So it's not hard for me to get through audiobooks. Okay, I'm ready. Throw your recommendations at me. Please make sure that they are in written form, or else I won't actually remember them.
So I'm reading this, The Illuminae. I've already read it. I read it for bingo. But I wanted to physically look at the book because it has like all black pages, and then it has I'm showing them. I know this is riveting audio right now. And they have like interview forms, and they come off like that. And
It's media. Mhm.
it's a epistolary book, and I've listened to it, but like I said, and when you listen to it, they have it sounds like a radio studio or a radio drama is what it sounds like. So I wanted to listen to it and read the book at the same time for my upcoming it is technically for my upcoming episode about audio versus audio versus physical versus ebooks. And I'm also reading Priest of Bones. So with
Yes,
Panda.
we're reading Priest of Bones together for an episode with Yasna and I think Winty as well. And my main commitment right now is Malazan. So yeah. That's my main commitment for the next year and a half. Woo!
Which is why I would love to do Jonathan Strange with you guys, but Panda may not want to. Okay. So we are so glad you joined us tonight. Thanks, Befuddled Panda, Megan, and Stephanie. Thanks, Craig, for loaning us a small corner of your media empire. Consider supporting the Legendarium on Patreon. Join us for the discussion on Reddit and Discord, but frankly, more on Discord. The link can be found at thelegendarium.com. And thank you, Horizon Brave, for starting it all. Good night.
Okay, really quick, doing a time check. How are we doing?
We're at, looks like 45 minutes. About.
More like for Megan and Stephanie. How do
55.
you have 15, 20 minutes?
I have nothing going on today.
Me neither.
Excellent.
Okay. I might regret you saying that.
This is only going to be a 3-hour-long episode, so
Coming in at
3
an
hours, I
all-time record.
Oh.
it would actually be mine and Megan's shortest conversations to sit for 3 hours talking to each other. So